best stacks for fantasy football in 2024. Welcome back to the ADP Average Dudes podcast. I'm your average dude, Matt Mormann, and it's been a while. I know. We're in a new place right now. We are moving, or we did move rather. The wedding is coming up in October, so there's been a lot of wedding stuff going on here recently. So just really hard for me to get a chance to build the content that I wanted to create this summer. So we're not going to be able to get through all the teams and the projections this year. Let's just kind of hit some topics here. And the first one I want to hit on is the concept of stacks in fantasy football. So a stack is a great idea for kind of really bringing up that upside, right? Where you have a quarterback as well as one of the receivers on the same team. These are the kinds of things that really, when you have that number one receiver with that quarterback, you can get those spike games at the same time in the same week. Compare that to when you have a set quarterback, a set receiver, and they're not lined up, right? They're not teammates. Sometimes you'll have that spike, but not this spike. So when you have those stacks and things align, things go really, really good. Now, stacks are not perfect by any means because, hey, if you've got this, duo that's awesome and all of a sudden they're going up against the 49ers defense and they have a bad game, then your team kind of stinks a little bit. And you have these two very important players just not really be a part of this team. To me, stacks are better in Superflex as well because you have two quarterbacks. So if you maybe have one of those quarterbacks be a stacked quarterback with another one, then you have the other one who can kind of give you that safety, a little bit of that floor opportunity. I personally have a dynasty team where a big part of my roster is the fact that I have a Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase stack. And 2 years ago, I guess it would have been, they basically won me the title because I got to the playoffs, and that was when Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase had those just massive games. I remember one was against the Baltimore Ravens, my team, and it really propelled me to the championship in that game. So it really has that ability to really bring up those stacks because you do just have more synergy in your lineup. So let's take a look at some stacks you may want to build this year in your fantasy football league. And before we do, be sure to hit that subscribe button on this channel. So the first stack I want to hit here is maybe the most important, or most expensive at least, stack in fantasy football this season. It's a stack that I personally rode last year throughout the second half of the season. That is the Dallas Cowboys. That is Dak Prescott and Ceedee Lamb. Now Lamb, look, you're going to have the second overall pick, maybe even picking first overall in order to take Ceedee Lamb this year. They're the best stack in 2023. And I think one of the first most important things to note with stacks is touchdowns. And Ceedee Lamb led all players last season in red zone targets. And it's a bonus if you want a cheap tight end stack. Hey, also go ahead and bring in Jake Ferguson into this as well. He was second in red zone targets last season. And I see that trend totally continuing here in 2024. Yeah, they brought back Ezekiel Elliott, but the run game is not one I'm that concerned about as far as being one that's going to be too detrimental for the passing touchdowns. And I think this Cowboys offense is going to be really, really good and be in the red zone quite a bit, and that's going to give those opportunities more and more to Ceedee Lamb. Another thing I love about this stack is there really is no wide receiver 2 on this team of note, so Ceedee Lamb is just going to get funneled these targets. And Jake Ferguson, again, like I said, he's a cheap add-on to this one as well. If you want to go that far, I don't recommend that necessarily, having two weapons and your quarterback all be attached together. But if you want to, a Jake Ferguson Dak Prescott stack is also not a bad idea. So that first one was expensive wide receiver and expensive quarterback. Well, let's bring one of those down here. Let's go with an expensive quarterback and kind of more of a mid-range wide receiver here. Let's go to the Indianapolis Colts. Let's talk about Anthony Richardson and Adonai Mitchell. Now, you could also put Pittman in here if you wanted a more expensive option on that stack, but I want to give you an option here for as far as more of a mid-tier, and Josh Downs is totally also an option here. I think this Colts offense is going to be much better this year. Anthony Richardson, hopefully healthy this season. He's probably the most high-risk, high-reward quarterback in the entire NFL this year. You look at the Colts roster, and touchdowns are so important to a healthy stack because that's really where you're getting those bonus points from. And Michael Pittman has always had touchdown problems. Josh Downs, smaller wide receiver, doesn't really profile as much of a red zone target. A.D. Mitchell, I know projecting touchdowns is a dangerous game, but he's the guy who I think could be the first Colt to catch 6 or more touchdowns since 2018. Eric Ebron was the last Colts player to catch 6 touchdowns in a season. He caught, I believe it was double digits that year. So I think while Pittman could be very healthy for a PPR league, he could be very good for that. I think A.D. Mitchell's kind of the pairing I want to make if I draft AR. If I go really hard and heavy on the Colts offense, I think he's the one who I'm more excited about from a price standpoint, again, as far as really kind of like leading those up. He's more of a flex option. Not a guy I'm going to go crazy about, but he can pay dividends as a flex when he comes through for you, pairing him up with Richardson. Okay, let's flip that on its head now. Let's go expensive wide receiver and more of a cheap quarterback. Let's talk about everybody's favorite breakout wide receiver this year. Let's talk about Drake London. He is one of my favorite breakouts as well this season. Kirk Cousins now throwing him the ball. And Drake London has been a red zone dominator since he came into the league. It's just the Falcons haven't had very many red zone opportunities. He's had 40% and 25% of the Falcons' red zone targets through 2 seasons. And again, they just don't get there very often. Kyle Pitts is also an option in this role as well. If you want to go the tight end route as well, you can definitely go Kyle Pitts and pair him up with Kirk Cousins also. It's something I did in a best ball draft not too long ago. Is I actually ended up with all 3 of these guys on one team, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing to link up the Falcons entirely and really kind of shoot for the upside of this offense if things do come together with Kirk Cousins. Now I've got one more for you here, and this is kind of more of the mid-range quarterback and a mid-range wide receiver, and it's crazy to think that this quarterback is a mid-range quarterback in fantasy this year. He's probably one of the best values out there. It's Justin Herbert for the Los Angeles Chargers. Herbert has been incredible. He's been amazing for us in fantasy ever since he came into the league. But we know the situation here, right? We know Greg Roman is going to run the football. We know Jim Harbaugh wants to run the football. But here's the thing. There are 320 vacated targets on this offense. They're not just going to throw the ball 320 less times. Ladd McConkey is the guy, I think, in this offense who really has an opportunity to step up and be that lead target. All the early OTA work said that he was very much having a good rapport with Justin Herbert. Things are really going well there. It's an offense that, while I'm a little worried about running the ball more than I would like to see, I don't think they're just going to totally put the Ferrari in the garage and forget about it. I think they're going to let Justin Herbert still throw the ball downfield and use the weapons he's always liked to use, in a style at least, that he's always liked to use. You know, with Keenan Allen out of there, I think Ladd McConkey fits right into that role. I think Josh Palmer does play a little bit of a factor, but not one that scares me enough at all. Ladd McConkey was my wide receiver 4 in the NFL draft this season. He landed a great spot with a great quarterback. I think it is an electric pairing to try to grab in the middle rounds. So that'll do it for some of my favorite stacks going into the 2024 draft season. What are some of your favorite pairings to make? Do you think an Aaron Rodgers-Garrett Wilson pairing could be very fruitful? What about Patrick Mahomes? What wide receiver are you trying to pair him up with? Let me know in the comments down below, and we'll see you next time.